Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. Oh, if you're wondering, how did I get so jacked? Oh, I don't know. It just happened. I just looked at the picture of weights and blew up like that. No, I just went back to the gym. That's what happened. Um, but as I said before, for a different reason. I went back to the gym for a very different reason that I used to go to. See, this is like I had a phase where I lost all motivation and then inspiration hasn't fired up yet. So I just didn't want to do anything for quite some time. And, I tried to revive the motivational mechanism, but it's just dead. It's just not there. It's just like it's like trying to resuscitate something that is, expired. And so then I just give up on this idea of resuscitating my motivation. And I just went into not doing anything unless there is an excitement about it that happens. Um, and when it happened, I did. And it's a different thing, to do something out of excitement rather than discipline. That's another thing about discipline. There's this discipline that is really like what we call about it. Discipline is building a belief system on top of your distorted reality. We're talking about building an ego. So there's this discipline, right? You can say like, well, the people in the army are very disciplined, right? But whose will are they employing? So all of this discipline is just creates more and more problems. And I'm not against the military. You could have a real military, not soldiers but warriors, and it's a huge difference. A warrior is not run by the ideology. A warrior has its own axis of truth, if you will. And this is why warriors are always more successful than soldiers because, I mean, uh, uh, it's not a discipline that made them skillful in their art. It is that the excitement, the natural excitement for it, that did it. Okay. And they don't read books. They don't follow protocols or anything like that. And all these protocols and all these skills and the pattern comes out. Like uh, if I'm learning a new skill, I don't read books about it. I used to do that. But now what happens is that my exploration of that excitement pops the idea how that everything's supposed to be structured and stuff like that. It's almost like the book is being written as I'm going through it. And so that's the opposite, the other side of the discipline. You see, the other side of the discipline is this real thing. I don't know if it's discipline, it's like excitement, really. Um, and one is sort of like a copying, and another one is writing it as it goes. You see? And this is what I want to talk about today about these patterns that appear. These are not literal patterns that appear that you can see, where usually you have like the eureka moments, right? We really like the way it is like to learn a skill from scratch is a different type of experience. Like I said, the book is being written. You are writing the book, not that you're reading a book and based on that book you're learning. No, you're learning and the book is being written. And that book is going to be written more up to date than the book that you would be reading. And this is why your skills are going to be superior than the disciplined person's skills. You see? And sometimes people say might is right. And that's not right. Right is might. You see? To do the right thing eventually becomes a mightful thing. To do the mightful thing eventually becomes the wrong thing. You see? And this is why I'm not impressed with this type of discipline. I've had the phase of my life where I've done all these things and I could see how far it can go, but I'm not impressed by that shit. It's backwards ass of living. You're always fighting with yourself. And then in the end, you kind of proven the fact that, like, look, I'm stronger than my soul. And who the fuck are you now? You are an ego, you know? And so this is why sometimes I see these people, and what I don't really like, I mean, I should probably, let that shit go also. But there's something that is kind of disingenuous when some of these people that, like, at this particular moment, I think they're getting out of fashion now, but there was this moment where this fascination with these men who are highly disciplined but went in the completely opposite way. And you can see that there's no more humor left there, there's or very little humor left there, a sense of humor. It's this very shelled and guarded person that actually, that discipline that they've been building the whole time was ego. And so then I don't see the point of having, like, people being impressed by that and they're celebrating that. They say, no, guys, that guy did wrong. It's not right. You see, it's not right. It's not the way. And it's not about the skills. But even with the skills, if you learn the skills through this perspective, through the opposite perspective, through the excitement and playfulness, the way you learn these skills, they're not going to be sort of mechanical. They're going to be sort of hitched to your soul. So the timing of application of these skills is going to be flawless. But if you just drill that thing into the robotic mind, but it doesn't have really attachment from the soul because it did not come from excitement of your soul, but it's just that thing, it's not gonna kick in, because that thing that you learned robotically without connection with your soul is actually now kind of useless. You know why? It's because the only way you can apply that skill that you learned robotically is if you got to move to that state of consciousness where that memory was recorded. And that state of consciousness is kind of off. It's tensed, it's not relaxed, it's not right. And so, but then you got to move to the state of consciousness. If you want that type of timing, if you want that excellence in any art that you do, it doesn't come from this robotic learning. It only comes from this intuitive heart electromagnetic field of sensing the thing before it even happens, you see? And that is a real artist or martial artist or a warrior or any of these disciplines that are out there, you see. And you can see some of these martial artists, for example, they've learned that discipline. They learned that discipline through excitement and enjoyment. And they are super dangerous. Like, because finding the person who is like in its mind has no sense of timing or very little sense of timing and just moves in a robotic way, is just going to be sort of like missing everything, and the person that they're fighting, they're going to be like a ghost disappearing the second they are aiming for it. You see? So that's what I have to say. But if you do it through the excitement and enjoyment, the discovery of the thing, rather than learning from the outside, I want to discover that move. I want to discover that skill by accident. Not really, it's sort of controlled accident. It's not really accident, but it's through the excitement, right? Uh, you see? And like that's why like every technique that I've ever learned, I had to discover it, even if it was shown by to me. I had to discover it. If something is shown to me, okay, fair enough. Now I have to discover it. And the only way I can do this is with my imagination and the feeling. And that feeling of excitement is supposed to correspond to that imagination. And then I can do it physically and say, okay, I got this. Because I've discovered within myself from the example. And my move may be quite different. Not exactly as shown, because it's from my energy, from my soul, from my body. This is why somebody's teaching you the correct technique, and when you're doing the move is quote unquote not correct, but works like bangers, you do not listen to that trainer who is telling you correct technique. Who fucking said what is correct? What correct is what feels right, and the application of that feels smooth and powerful. That's how it's supposed to feel. And then if you do the correct move and you feel fucking weak and it just doesn't work for you, you will have to adjust based when it feels powerful. You see, based on your gait and everything. This is why like every technique is supposed to be completely unique. There's no unique the same. And this is why sometimes I call the learning of this is, by the way, this is what happens. Look. So there's this soul, and it can go in one or the two ways. It can go the tree of knowledge, and then it can go the tree of life. And if you go the tree of knowledge, there's not a lot of tree of life that's going to be left, meaning the enjoyment of life is just going to be sucking. But if you go on the way of tree of life, the tree of knowledge happens automatically and it's placed in a very correct place, which is usually just application of that skill. And it happened, it came to you as it was necessary. So you discover the tree of knowledge, not from any kind of books. Even the skills you can discover. You can say, well, that's kind of technical stuff. How is this can be discovered? Dude, how do you think they originally came up? Not from the outside. Nothing ever came from the outside. Everything came from the within. Duh. Because it's just like you can see the how it all works. And you can say, yeah, all right, so how something new comes, into this reality? Definitely not for something that is old. You see, it also has to come from the infinite, not from the temporal. So you want to discover the entire skill, the entire arts through your own exploration, excitement, and all that stuff. And this is how I'm learning right now. For example, I'm learning dancing, and the way I learn dancing is not how I used to learn. I didn't go like study and figure out like how it is. No, just pure doing, watching, and it's like collaborating with the universe and watching something. Like somebody else is dancing and then they're doing this kind of move, and I'm like, whoa, oh, and I can see the pattern. I can see like, okay, I got this. I know what this guy is doing. It's this continuation of the pattern, and I can see how it's drawing that pattern and say, okay, it's all about drawing the pattern. All right, cool. And you apply that principle, and it works. Did not have to read the book. Everything comes from the doing itself. Okay. And it's almost like um, these moves that people are showing how to do it, but then you do it by how it feels, and you may be doing completely different. And this is it becomes the way you do it, uh, and that will feel right, and that will bring the most joy, and that's how it will make it correct. That's what makes it correct, because of how much enjoyment you create. Um, but if somebody does the dance, what is classed to be correct or whatever, right? But there's no life there. It's just a move going on, and it's like okay, that just kind of looks pretty awesome, but I didn't feel shit looking at it, you know. And then sometimes you see something that's quite basic, but whoa, powerful. And so that's what I impressed about. And the real talent cannot be learned without the alchemy. You see? It's gonna be done. And it's just two ways, you know. It is a dark discipline, you know. It's like an all my dark discipline that they've ever learned went away. It's like that memory did not existed. And I was wondering, what the fuck happened with my memory? But I realized that that part that required me to be in that state that is kind of uncomfortable and painful is gone. And therefore, there is no memory associated with that. Because memory is imprinted into vibration, and vibration is a state of consciousness, right? In that state of consciousness of kind of, uh, it's usually called beta, but it's not that simple. It's not just beta. There's a two. Okay, I'm just gonna say something really cool. Maybe some people will like that. So the way the consciousness works is you have the background and the foreground. And so then the background is just like that, you know, uh, space, like I suppose, like the screen, if you will. And the foreground is what paints it. But the foreground and the background, they have to be together, right? But they interact together like that. And the foreground frequency and the background frequency will determine the coherence. And this is why sometimes you can have low frequency, and some of these people say low frequency is bad. No, not necessarily. Low frequency can be coherent. You can have the lowest frequency in the background coherent with the highest frequency in the foreground and be in the most incredible bliss explosion peak experience. Like that, what would happen? This is the highest coherence with the highest foreground frequency that can possibly be. That normally would be painful if it's not balanced by the total and complete silence, meaning like the lowest frequency that could be in the background. So this is where you can see how the consciousness really works. This is why sometimes people say theta state, beta, and it's not as simple. You have to denote the coherence and to understand exactly in what state you are. Which this science kind of fascinates me because you can actually write down the correct state. You can create almost like a nomenclature for that specific state that the person is in, describing by the frequency that your brain is operating at. Because some scientists, they've realized that there is a base in the background and the foreground, and in the brain they usually see this temporal areas may be lit up onto the gamma, the frontal cortex with the gamma, and the back may be just lit up with the theta. This is, by the way, what they found out in the people who were lucid dreaming. That's where they were at. They were creating the foreground pictures and images, which is to be lucid, to have gamma, and we're in a trance state that is capable to sustain that thing. So there was the coherence between gamma and theta, and it created that specific state. And so there are, as you can see, these specific states. They're on the spectrum, but categorization of them can kind of help you where it's all at. Okay, and so there are these incoherent states that exist there, and it could be from the highest to the lowest. You see, the incoherent state of low frequency background, when it's not balanced with the high frequency foreground, what would that be? That would be kind of depression, right? And what would be the opposite of that? The high frequency without the adequate coherence? That would be pain, which leading to fear, anxiety. That would be anxiety. Anxiety, depression on the two opposite axes. And there are two more kind of in between. Okay? So, knowing that's how your consciousness works and how these states are, and is a combination of the foreground and the background frequency, and their coherence and the resonance create that specific state. I mean, like in science and physics, it's observable. It's just like what I'm talking about now is metaphysics, and it's also observable, but it's not observable outside of you, observable inside of you. And sometimes you can be like, okay, if you're lucid dreaming, like, hey, what kind of state am I in, you know? And then if you're like, can be, for example, sitting in a completely deafening silence, you know, like, whoa, what kind of state is that? And each of those coherent states are, these gems that we've been alchemizing. And when you unlock some of these levels, these gems, then you can always go to that particular state of consciousness, that coherent state of consciousness. And the goal of life is actually to, like, throughout the day, go through all of those coherent states of consciousness, from the highest, frequency to the lowest frequency, in all coherent vibrations. This is when you live your life through all of these levels and just always hitting the coherent energies. It's like, dude, that's like you're the boss. But reality is that sometimes, like, by moving to one state or another, there is a challenge. Like, oh, you want to that type of state? Okay, you got to be coherent in this particular area. And so then that's when the alchemical process comes in, and you're doing it and you're calibrating that particular area, and sort of shaping your consciousness to be able to access all different states of consciousness that are coherent without relying for the external stimulus for the temporary coherence to appear, which, by the way, what makes it to have a crash. It is reliance on the external induction of the coherence. Not to say that you don't take anything externally, but you don't take it to induce coherence. In other words, you don't do it to pacify the feeling that that it feels bad. And this is the problems with psychedelics, by the way, is because people create the reality because they take the psychedelic, and sure, they tap into the source and they start creating reality, awesome. But then after that, the crash comes in, and then like, whoa, take another dose of this, or like, are you gonna go the alchemical way? So that's just science, guys. According to my calculations, but what I want to talk about is how the perspective of the reality is different in even the things that you see. And I want to bring your attention to this phenomena that is layered in this physical reality, but the meaning is almost like it's not literal. I can immediately tell you it is not literal meaning. You can live life literally and miss all those hidden things that were there. And it's okay to miss once to later realize, oh fuck, uh, I missed the entire section of experience. I wasn't even there anymore because I haven't even paid attention there. You could watch something going on literally, and that would be like someone picking up the chair and moving to another side and placing the chair, and it would be like, okay, that's just the guy pick up the chair and move. And you can be also in the state of being aware of everything else around you, and the people, the noise, the everything, and then that picking off the chair, moving to another location is an experience of like the epic proportions. you know um, and that can be seen through the eyes of the innocence. And this is why sometimes people can relate to that when, for example, they take LSD or whatever, did they start experiencing world like as baby would, and be like, oh my god, it's fascinating. So why are you staring at this for an hour? Because it's so fucking beautiful. And so that's why. And you say, but it's not changing, it's boring, it's just one same picture. But it's like, no, you don't get that, bro. You gotta look deeper. And you can't look with your eyes deeper. But that deepness requires a certain type of passing a certain type of threshold, which is a chemical threshold. So, I'm sure that you begin to notice these things, that, for example, sometimes you talk to somebody and somebody uses the word, the location, the whatever, and you're like, huh, what is all that all about? I started hearing this. This is why I like to play the game like that. It's like, at first I was kind of pissed off. It's like, don't breadcrumb me, universe, man. You're sort of being very condescending when you do this. Just tell me directly, You're fucking with me, you're breadcrumbing me, and like you have to figure out the meaning, and like, why don't you just give me the information directly, and I'll be done. But if I would do that, I would skip the playfulness of discovering the mystery. You see, and so being a fool makes you a sage, as this one very foolishly wise person said. So breadcrumbing, right? And so now I thought, okay, well, let's play these breadcrumbing games. And I started writing it down. I wrote down, okay, this, and then later I'm looking at it. It's like, is there any kind of picture arising from this? Like, what is going on here? And I'm like, okay, there's nothing that resonates. There's some ideas, but this is how you can filter the ideas, whether they're true or not, dude. If you have a question, whether when the idea springs into your mind, is this a right answer? And it may be something like of what's really going on, right? What I'm trying to say is that what is going on? What is the meaning of this? Like, what does the people mean? Like, what is this vibe? What is going on? And you kind of want to sort of peek into the future a little bit, right? But when you peek into the future, you're creating it. So by watching the quality of the thought, you may see that it's a right or bullshit. So your brain or your mind may spring your thought, poof, right? And looking at it, it's just like, oh, it says it's this. Your brain just said it. First of all, you have to say, how the fuck do you know? And the brain will never be able to justify that. It's like, how the fuck do you know? Where the fuck did you come up with this shit? It's like, oh, this person is like that. How the fuck do you know? Is this real? Or are you just making that shit up? Or this person is not going to do this. Or this person, I know what this person is going to do, right? Like all of that pattern that comes up. But you can say, first of all, we don't know that. So let's not make that shit up. Let's not hallucinate the reality. We don't know. The brain cannot justify that. Say, yeah, in fact, we do not know because I just gave information from my library, which is a memory and the past. Okay, and that did not feel good. You can watch that thought popping up, and then if you have a question is like whether it was a truthful thought or it's just bullshit, what it was the quality of the feeling. And it just came up and it was just kind of didn't really feel good. It must be bullshit. So you don't believe this. By saying believing it, you don't start running in your mind. This is what's like been going on in my head when I'm kind of trying to be, when I feel like the energy is trying to push me off my throne. This is what's going on sometimes, like these thoughts popping up. But then I was looking at it, it's like, how the fuck do you know? This is bullshit. It does not feel good. And so I discard this idea. That's what's recently been going on, because I was still surprised of why these thoughts are still happening there. And I think they're happening is because it doesn't require just the alchemy, it requires the magic too. And that's what the magic is. It's playing with images. And that thought that pops up is an image. And says like, oh, I can suggest you the reality. It's like, but no, you can't suggest me reality because you're just pulling it from the past. I already lived that. And also it doesn't feel right. That's why I'm saying like, no, it did not have coherence. That thought did not have coherence. And then you don't think about it, and your brain is not gonna bring the same thought again because it was debunked. You know? And by the way, you see, like everything in the Matrix, all these words, even the sacred denominations of the word of the states and meanings, are just an abomination of that, because it's referring not to the real thing. Mantra, for example. Now, mantra became a repetitive thing that somebody says, like, blah, 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 you know, like you saying Coca-Cola, 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 or whatever, right? And they say, like, well, that's going to train the mind. No, it's going to dull the mind. It's not the real mantra. Mantra is what I'm talking about right here. It is about, like, training mind. Mind pops up, the image, no resonance, dissolve. Mind pops up the image, resonance. Good job, mind. You gave me something of quality. We're picking this one now. And so you believe that. And by believing, you can act on it. And this is where it's going to get you to do like more and more synchronistic basis of reality. Through reality maybe breadcrumbing you. You see? Oh my God, this is like blowing my mind. Lately something's going on. Like I've not taken any kind of psychedelic or anything like that. But I've been going through like a lot of alchemical processes. And but lately something freaking amazing going on. It's a very weird type of state to be in, where it's just like it doesn't feel like that I'm doing much, but amazing stuff going on. And it almost like realizations that come to me also. Damn it, bro. The realizations that come to me are very self-correcting. You know, like every single bullshit pattern that I would still have, just being lit up. And I no longer have insistence of my ego's will, so to speak, right? I don't have that insistence anymore. Even sometimes when I'll tell you an example. For example, there's this view that I can see here, and from certain level of consciousness, it is true. It is very disorderly. Like the way people live here are very disorderly, and from one perspective of consciousness, is true. It is very disorderly, and something about their consciousness creates that disorder externally as well. And only from this different type of mind can create an order, right? And see, they have that disorder in uh, physical reality, the way even they build their houses and how trash is just laying around everywhere, and their consciousness is not about order, and which piss me off because like what is how can you not and so it seems to be like they're not self-correcting, but that's just layer of the people that exist. For me to learn that there's this layer of the people that exist that not that um, not that it may affect my life, you see. It's just just a layer of culture. So and it doesn't really affect me that much, honestly, but there is this sort of like inability to feel the space in the room, and it appears that people don't really have uh, understanding and of each other and this type of thing. But anyway, that's just from one layer of perspective. That appears to be so. And if I engage into that one, it's always gonna just be like pissing me off. And then I started seeing sort of deeper, and sometimes instead of whining about how disorderly it is, I started looking for the patterns in that disorder. And there are a lot of patterns in that disorder that are useful for my life. And even the person that doing the gestures, and sometimes I would say that, okay, that's just like a call for fighting. I would look at this and say, from another perspective, it is a message from the universe, nothing to do with, uh, you know, whatever is going on a literal level. But beyond that literal level, you start seeing that, oh, fuck, okay, that's one of the synchronicities. So you can look at the person who's being complete asshole, but you just don't even see the asshole anymore. You see like, okay, what kind of patterns this person is creating, and in that you can see like, oh, okay. It wasn't about that person being an asshole. It was about the message that they've sent to me, this inadvertent message that they've sent to me, the breadcrumb. I'm like, okay. And that's how you can find the gem in the filth. And there are a lot of these gems in that filth. This non reaction observation of everything that's going on in your life gives you an access to the layer of reality, which your life becomes like this mystery, detective series or something like that. And why would you not to want to live life like as if it's a mystery unfolding? Of course you would. You're not trying to pretend that like, oh, I am this such a fucking wise guy, and like listen to me because I have a turban on my head and a long beard, and I talk like this, and so that's why you have to listen to me. Fuck those niggas. Anyway, um, the patterns. We're talking about the patterns. Oh my god! Right, you can see through it that nonsense as well, and you can see what's the real message there. So, yeah. But to live a life as like this child on one side and the sage on the other, so to speak, is the best thing. Yeah. Like like I had the problem of, like I said before, like I had the problem with this, like reality is just kind of fucking with me, right? That's what it appears. But I realized no, it's not fucking. It's playing with me. It's basically saying like, hey, play a game with me. And I was saying, no, don't play a game with me. Just show me. They give me the answer. I said, like, well, no, if I give you the answer, you're gonna lose the enjoyment of the game. So I can't give you the answer. And if I give you the answer, you're not gonna be happy with it anyway. And this is what the ego wants. She always seeks answers. But if you just shut the fuck up and start watching things and listening things, which is, I'm talking to myself as well, um, you start freaking seeing things, and you start seeing the synchronicities, and you start putting the pieces back together. And then, like, your decisions in your life now determined from completely different mechanism of what you do, what you choose, where you go. No longer imagine that your choices becomes about this playfulness between you and your universe, and she always kind of leaves you little hints, which, by the way, again, how the consciousness work is this. For example, if there's a background of everything which is kind of virgin and empty, right? That's green. Now, for the foreground of how to paint, what kind of patterns to paint on that background, you would need to. How does he know? How does it know the foreground? What kind of pattern to create for it to be ideal or beautiful? That pattern. How the fuck does the foreground know? It is because the invisible magnetic energy already suggesting where the attention must go. The awareness, the background, giving you the pattern and showing where the attention is supposed to go. And when it goes there, it creates that pattern. So what happened there is the feminine principle signaled to a masculine principle to create that pattern. So, and then it cascades to the rest of the reality. And this is what happens. For example, in the real life, if a woman in that state of consciousness, which, by the way, it happened to me, and I was like, what the fuck, this is amazing. If a woman is in that state of consciousness, of that background of everything, that peace, that devotional state, for you as a man, everything becomes clear of what to do in that moment, perfectly, exactly the way she wants to be done. She may not even be able to, like, verbally or with the brain and mentally kind of describe that thing, and usually they don't. But the feeling that she feels, if you pick that up, you know exactly what kind of pattern you create. And so there now, the female signals, the man watches and listens. It happens on a subconscious level, by the way, but you can be aware of it. Then the man creates that pattern from the feeling, because the woman may say, like, no, I don't want to do this, right? But the heart may say, but I'm really excited to try it. And so then you're going to have to listen to the heart and be gentle enough to lead her out, into the reality that her heart wants to experience. So your heart should suggest, then you lead her out of this. You see, so that's the game that we're playing. This is the yin and yang game. And we agreed from very beginning to say, we said, look, we're gonna play this game. You're gonna signal something out, and I'm gonna have to figure out what that is in order to lead you into this, in this reality. So that's the game. And it perpetuates like that, the feminine signals, the masculine reads, it turns it into action. If the pattern, the formation of the pattern, of the feminine enjoys the crap out of it, and that enjoyment sends another signal, and then you, and this perpetually we play this game. Um, so that's how you know what is true. It's how it resonates, and this is how you make a decision. Try it if you've never done it, and say like, okay, um, you think of this as, you think of that, you think of this is like, which one resonates, and you think of this, and it just has like a lot of resonance. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that, and you do that. And so that's why, like, sometimes people say, like, I want you to read my mind. Now, of course, when uh, when a woman says like that, uh, this is, of course, true. But really, what they want is like, I want you to read my heart, because I'm gonna say the opposite with my head. And you're gonna have to not listen to the head, but listen to my heart. And then, you know, you know, and that's the game we play. And and honestly, look, like, I sometimes, I knew that that's what's going on, but I let, because when somebody is insisting like too much on the ego and insisting one particular reality very, very aggressively, the negative reality onto you, um, sometimes it's okay, like, you can see that and say, okay, that's not what actually that person wants. I know what the person wants, but because they're so aggressive about it, you say, well, okay, get what you want and see for yourself. At least once, get what you want. So then that ego insistence of this negative reality is going to calm down a little bit. And then when it's not that flaming, and it's more like a little gentle, and says like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to do this, rather than, attacking you, then, only then, you can kind of meet the lady in the middle. When she, you know, maybe saying something that is a hesitation, but her heart is full of excitement. So now you can work with the lady, you see, and then the game may happening, because this is what I've noticed in a dance as well. Um, you can't play with the lady unless she's playing with you. Uh, and there's two things that usually happens with the lady. Is she either super, like, relaxed and loose, that she's like almost like a rag doll. It's very difficult to dance with this type of lady. And another type of lady, when she's too rigid and does not want to move based on how you lead her, but she wants to move based of what she thinks. Um, and So there's two extremes, right? The rigidity and too much of a flabby flab. So you want that sweet spot in the middle. This is where you can play it the most, and you yourself have to be there in the middle. You can't be too pushy, but you can't be too soft either. You got to find that sweet spot of the elegance where you are leading and she's following. And when there is that sweet spot, there's resonance. There's like the best shit that could possibly happen, because these two energies are in cahoots or coherence. I guess colloquially speaking, it's cahoots, which means coherence in more of a scientific language, I suppose. So there, so that's what's up. But that's the real dynamic that's going on. It's always a responsibility lies on both sides. And you, as a man or as a woman, can only be in the middle. You don't go back into that despair, and don't go into the aggression. You stay in the middle, no matter what's going on. And the other people maybe sort of too rigid or too soft and whatever, but you stay where you are, and then you attract another person who also stays where you're at, and doesn't leave that place, right? And so this is where you want to meet. You have to meet each other in the middle. You see? And that's the biggest ego check there can be. Stuck in the middle with you. Okay. What else can I say about this? Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. Any afterthoughts? Yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Damn. But this nugget about how the thought feels, this is what I've realized to be the discipline of magic. I've asked this question, by the way. I got it what the alchemy is, which is the symbol of a circle. I got it what that is, and it's a point in a circle, and it's moving your attention, which is a point, and awareness, which is the circle, and always moving in exactly where it needs to be, where the coherence is. And this is like you do it with your attention and awareness, and you play that kind of game, and you thought them. But then I asked the question, it's like, okay, what is the joystick of magic? What is the joystick of my imagination? Because if I just try to imagine something like, oh, that needs to be done, and I just go straight directly to imagine that, yeah, but it's something that just doesn't feel too right for me. I I kind of want that image to be suggested to me rather than imposing the image. You kind of let the images to arise, and the magic happens is not you imposing, which that probably what may calls it dark magic. And oh my god, this is it. This is why, for example, sometimes like you try to imagine something, and the feeling is kind of and it was like, no, but I'm imagining good thing. Why the feeling, But I think the right way is to let the suggestion arise from the logos, arise from that coherent state. Okay? Gnosis, that's why it's called direct knowledge. And so you let that image, which is a thought, arise in your imaginational field from the source. And it may come out from the ego, and then you'll be like, okay, that's the thought. And it's like, how do I know this is right? It just doesn't have resonant feeling. Okay. Next, nothing coming up. Okay. And then suddenly, poof, something comes up. Like, oh, that's like high resonant feeling. Okay, that's true. I'm imagining that, and you can enjoy imagination of that and watching how it unfolds, because it's just going to unfold like a movie. But you're placing the attention, and so this is why, like, the universe is suggesting you the template for that reality, and if you are good at feeling that out and saying like, oh, you put attention there, well, that's a lot of resonance. Okay, I'm gonna go there. There's a lot of resonance. I'm gonna imagine this thing. It has a lot of resonance. And you just etched the magic in your reality, but you did it like a boss. You did not impose that reality. It came directly from the source. You listened to that suggestion and you burned it with magic. That is the true power of fantasia. Magic and fantasia is just like devotion to alchemy. Fantasia is to magic. It's a feminine principle. Devotion is a feminine principle for the alchemy, and devotion is what kind of leads the alchemy. It shows it where to focus, where to put attention. It leads it. Actually, fuck, it's actually, that's why it's kind of crazy that um, internally the feminine leads, externally the masculine leads, and so that's why there's these roles are like kind of flipping, like this. Um, and for the man to lead externally is the best enjoyment, and for the woman to lead internally is the best enjoyment because they just go into the state that feels really good for them, and then you immediately know of what they need to, what they need, uh, magically. What I'm talking about, of course, is a different world. This is how relationships work in our holistics. Everything's run by magic. So yeah, that's how it works. Suggestion, intention, and then creation of that. And so then, I mean, lately I often, instead of like imposing an image, sometimes I would just be watching it and saying, like, okay, let's show me what you got. And based on how good I feel and what kind of images are arising, I focus on that. And sometimes, uh, if I feel really, really good, I start seeing rainbows. And I'm just like watching these rainbows in my imagination. And they correspond to that feeling of awesomeness. And I didn't get to the part where, like, sometimes very rarely these rainbows take the form, like some sort of form, the image. Um, this is where I'm exploring next. Is because I really want that feeling to give me an image, and then based on that vibration, I will select which image is true, what image to create, and so be really good at that uh, system. Like some ideas will be suggested by God, so to speak, and some ideas will be suggested by the devil, and I will know which one is right based on the coherence level. And if the bad ideas are keep coming up, you go to the source, you make it coherent, and then the good ideas start popping up about that subject. Okay. And then maybe another video, because I don't want to make it longer than that hour, but um, maybe another video we're going to talk about more of a mind situation, what's going on there. But that's just enough for you to navigate, like, everything what I'm talking about is, how to use consciousness, which, by the way, I think this is, like, to me the highest leverage thing to learn. I mean, because you're like right into this, like, game of playing it directly of how it's supposed to be. And that is about learning how to use the instrument of consciousness. The first instrument that you want to learn how to play is your consciousness. That's where all the fascination is supposed to be. This is the best rewards. Also, because the world is your oyster, not as a belief, but actually, when you play the game like that. I've had experience once where some information came to me that and it was about what about to happen, and it came to me with such a force, such a strong resonance that it was just like flash, and I was like, okay, I have no doubts. I had no doubts that that's what's going to happen, and it happened. And it happened because of the coherence in my brain about that subject. Um, that's where all the answers come from. The real answers that you it's even worth knowing from the coherence of your soul. But isn't it fascinating? For example, like um, learning to play three joysticks of life, like the alchemy, magic, and might. And I'm learning the alchemy and magic right now, and then the might I'm kind of uh, figuring it out. I just realized that it's not the way I used to learn or how other people, most people that I see that they're learning, and they are valuing that as a, you know, celebrating this type of discipline. I realized that nope, there's no value in that type of discipline. It's not, uh, you know, it's actually everything that was learned needs to be burned away. Can you imagine that? And I'm not just saying this um, dramatically, uh, literally needs to be burned away. And well, can I say literally? I mean metaphysically, all that memory must be that's been written in those negative states will go away. By the way, if that state is no longer with you, that state of look, I mean, this literally happened with me. What I was knowing, I was. Let's see. Okay, I shouldn't go full retard. That's a well-known principle. But some of it is okay. So to bring this message home, this is what happened to me. I literally forgot my skills, basic skills even, and I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with me?" Like I would feel really happy and peaceful, whatever, and like I'm super super happy, but I just don't know what the fuck is going on. And so I had to figure out what the fuck is going on the different way. I had to figure out what the fuck is going on the different way. Um, and so guys, like, if you read books that are entertaining, you know. And if you read the book about something, I'm not saying that anything's wrong with the books. Books are good, are great, but the real value that the book has, it's an invitation. You can read what it is, even if it's a skill book or whatever. You read what it is. It's like, okay, all right. You kind of get like a little map of what could happen, and then you go out by yourself and figure that shit out by yourself. And you may even invent something new. You may even invent exact same things that somebody else invented in the techniques and whatever. But you may invent something new, and that would, and then you write the book, and your book is going to be up-to-date version of the reality of art and science. But if you read one book, about a subject, and if you continuously going and reading another one, seeking that answer, something's wrong with this picture. It's not you're not directly living life and relying, you know, or pacifying yourself with knowledge, intoxicating. Really, that's what you're doing, intoxicating yourself with knowledge. But once it's okay. Read the book once about specific topic. Pick the favorite book about specific topic. Read it once, and it'll be all right. And but then know that that book was written by somebody, and that that person did not know uh, anything that anybody else kind of uh, figure out at the time. Because sometimes, like the entire, like one person creates the entire discipline of sports. For example, judo apparently was created by uh, Jigoro Kano. I think that's how it's called. His name is. And so, what the fuck? One guy created everything, uh, and then that became like a bible of how you fight in a judo sport. You see? And it was very interesting phenomena that was going on, by the way, in judo, which I wasn't very happy, and I hope it's going to change the direction. And it was that it became at some point more invention based, right? It was like, what is the purpose of the game? Oh, put your opponent on the back in this particular way, blah 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 blah. Okay, okay. And what else is, you know? And then you figure out and say, all right, let's figure out what other ways that can be done, pattern sequences or whatever. And that started, like, people started exploring and creating different moves and whatever. And then the judo authorities are like, well, that's not what Jigoro Kano wrote, so why? No, we have to limit that. And so it became this, uh, like, no, it has to look like this. And so we're gonna remove all these. We're gonna ban all the movements unless it looks like this, like Jigoro Kano wrote. And I bet that Jigoro Kano would not be happy with this, the evolution of the judo, and it would just basically say that judo got frozen in time, and it has a potential to be way more beautiful, way more um, uh, dynamic sport. It already is fascinatingly dynamic as it is, even with all these limitations that they were imposed. But it could be so much more than this. And I don't know. Um, and so there was this imposition of tradition, and I think this is like this just misunderstanding of the original Japanese principles upon which the entire art was founded. You know, it was founded uh, on the foundation of jujitsu, which was an actual martial art that was used in actual combat by samurai. Um, and the reason you wanted to put your opponent on the back is, of course, to kill your opponent. And why necessarily on the back? Because when your opponent is wearing armor, that's when the most vulnerable. And if you put your opponent on the back, the opponent is dead. And so this is why it became the game after that. Put your opponent on the back. And this is why sometimes you see like the move is done in judo, and just like boom, your opponent touched the floor for a brief moment with their back, and then you see like, well, it was just like for a brief moment of a second, but that was enough to score. But really, and upon the termination of that movement, the person who gained the score is not in a position to kill the person, right? But yet this is a score because it became the game, and the rule just says, well, as long as the back touches the mat, even for a brief of a second, that's it. That's a score. uh, and so anyway, so you can see that type of evolution. And the principles must remain, but the rules must always change. This is why, like, the axis of reality. Principles always remain, Roles always change. Anyway, I expanded too much on this subject, but you see what I'm trying to say here, okay? Oh, just gonna go back, bulking up for the winter. Anyway, guys, I feel like I have to finish this with the summary of this message. I mean, what I'm trying to communicate here, that there is absolutely the three joysticks of life. And as a man, I'm primarily, looking from the man's perspective, but I'm also talking about from the woman's perspective. Uh, because it's not like they're not playing this game. We are in this together. We're playing the game. Um, okay. Okay. What else can I say? So I think the highest leverage of in this life is to just learn what are these joysticks, and play them from the masculine perspective and the feminine perspective. And like I'm saying, like nothing comes from the outside, not even the skills. Magically, somehow it's packed inside of you. And sometimes I do the moves that no one taught me, just came out spontaneously, and then later I can see that like that is a sort of like a classic move. I say, how the fuck does that come to me? Because I've never seen this before. I don't remember watching that, but it comes. And so you gotta have faith that that's the level of knowledge that it comes from gnosis from within yourself. And all the external knowledge is great just to kind of almost like to use as a breadcrumb. Anyway, hopefully I'm making sense. Peace, and I'll see you in the next one.